I'm a boat builder from the Cotswolds in the UK, and I'm currently building a boat called Temptress, designed by Michelle Barriere and kitted by myself to be built utilising the latest in CAD design, CNC cutting and modern epoxy wood construction. In the previous video, you watched me manhandle these two big stringers into the boat and just about got that done on my own. That's quite a task. In this video and over the next couple of videos, I'm going to start to cherry pick each of the elements around the framing. Those will come out one at a time. I'll do some final work on those, which will include things like plug-in holes, the holes that locate these on the frame construction table. They can now be filled. We'll just do some final cleanup and sanding of the parts, and then they'll get epoxy coated, and then they'll go back in one by one. So I'll work down the boat doing that. Now, because that work is going to be largely repetitive over the next few videos, what I'm going to do is pick a subject, and then we're going to talk about some various things over the top of the work that I'm doing, just to make it a little bit interesting for you guys. Now, in the first of those videos, we're going to talk a little bit about the costings of this project. Not just the costings of that, but the whole kind of structure that works behind the scenes for this business and for this project. So I'm going to share quite a lot of stuff with you guys about what the boat's costing. Now, that might be interesting for people, certainly if you're looking to build one of these yourself. Maybe if you're just interested in the project, or it might just be a general interest to people anyway. I'm going to talk about my earnings and how the money comes in for this project and for the business as a whole, really. You might be interested in setting up a YouTube channel of your own, so you can get a little bit of insight into how that works and how all this stuff behind the scenes functions. Overall, I really hope that this video comes across in the desired way as a positive insight into the project and the business. I'm not really somebody who seeks sympathy or looks to play the victim, and I always feel uncomfortable asking people for things, especially when that's money. And even if I have to film the segments of my videos that are like, please like and subscribe to my channel, I hate doing it, and trust me, you should see the outtakes from those elements. So my aim here is to portray a positive message and a genuine insight into this business and this project and its potential future. So we'll get the first components out of the boat, I'll start working on them, and then I'll talk you through, first of all, just why I'm doing all of this. So, why am I undertaking this project? If you guys have followed the channel for some time, then you'll know that boat building was kind of my hobby for a long time before I actually started down the boat building as a business. You know, I ran another business alongside that, and I'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later on in the video. When I started the business, I first of all didn't really know what direction it was going to take and what kind of form we were going to go in, but I was always conscious that building new boats was really where I wanted to be, rather than doing restoration or, you know, any of the other kind of elements that we really could have gotten into with the business. So that was always my aim, really, was new wooden boats. Achieving that is an incredibly difficult thing. Actually, getting started as a new wooden boat builder is a very difficult undertaking for a number of reasons. But I was always adamant that that's where I wanted to be. New wooden boats is kind of where I feel like I can do my best work with exploring some of these kind of new technologies and working practices and things. I feel like I'm sort of best placed to be doing that rather than putting together old boats and restoring them. And plus, that's not really ever something that's interested me. Obviously, I love old boats. So new wooden boats was really what I always dreamed that I wanted to do. That was the proper end goal. Got to find a way to get there somehow. So for me, starting the build of Temptress is really about trying to actively push myself and the business in that direction, and to make a move towards establishing myself as as a reputable modern wooden boat builder. That's where I always wanted to be with this, and I'm very conscious of the fact that I probably don't really live in the right country for the the market demographic that I'm sort of aiming to with the type of boats that I want to build. But in spite of that, there was this kind of determination that this is really what I wanted to be doing, and I didn't want to get sort of caught up with loading my workflow full of restoration stuff and just ended up settling and doing that for the rest of my life. It's doesn't really interest me, and as I said, I kind of feel like my work is best done in the modern boat world, really. So starting this project was about me actively trying to push out into that direction, and alongside that, I've kind of tried to find ways to make the business work, because ultimately this is a business. There's a workshop here to pay for. I have to also live off of the money that I make from this business. It pays for my relatively humble life outside of work, and all of those costs, as a first and foremost, as with any business, have got to be paid, and that's got to be really the first thing to take care of. There's definitely the kind of consciousness of that. That's one of the reasons that I kind of steer this business down the line of getting into like course creation, video creation, because I saw a kind of avenue with which I'm actually able to earn a living and get this business established without necessarily being able to sell a boat, certainly in the first instance anyway. When it comes to trying to sell boats and get yourself on the kind of, I don't know, on the ladder, I suppose it is, with regards to modern wooden boat building, it's an incredibly difficult thing, trying to portray, what you can actually achieve as a boat builder, and sort of get people to take that confidence in your ability to build and deliver good quality boats, be there for the customer when they need you to be, to service it, to repair it, whatever it is further down the line, but also for that customer to gain an understanding of exactly what they're getting when they buy a boat from you. These are the type of things that it can take most of your career to actually establish a reputation for before you can kind of get into that position. A lot of these bigger boat building companies that are selling typical boats similar to what I'm doing, they might be second or third generation down the line by now, and it's taken them a long time to gain that reputation. Now, starting up a new wooden boat building business, particularly in kind of times as they are at the moment, it's an incredibly difficult undertaking, and I've seen a huge amount of businesses fail within the first year to 2 years, just trying to sustain themselves and just trying to get that first order underway for their boat. Even if you do manage to complete the build of your first boat and then get that to market, getting the second one or even selling the first one is difficult. And as I say, I've seen a lot of businesses establish and get themselves started and then fail at the first hurdle. I was very determined that that was not going to be me, and that I was going to ride that out, which is part of the reason I kind of focus, as I said, on these other things for a lot of my income for the business, to make sure that, as first and foremost, the bills get paid. So yeah, getting that first boat built is a big hurdle to overcome, and say landing that first customer, getting somebody to kind of take a chance on you really and commission that first boat or buy one that you've already completed is a really tough thing to do, and it can even take probably a handful of boats, I guess, before you've sort of developed that reputation enough And that's the really difficult stage of the business, is breaking through that kind of barrier and getting yourself established as a name, as a brand, and getting people to kind of know who you are as well. I guess YouTube for me is a kind of way of getting in front of more people, which accelerates that process, which, as I say, otherwise can take people several generations before they get to that stage. So that's kind of where I sit currently, really, is trying to get that first project underway, try and get that first boat on the water. And I'm really confident that, you know, once this boat, I'm looking at like 2 frames and a stem here right now, but once this boat is on the water and people can really see the results of, you know, what I'm able to achieve when I sort of put my full attention to it, we can build some incredible boats. But trying to portray that message at this early stage when we're looking at a pile of parts is a very difficult thing indeed. And getting somebody to part with the sort of money that we're looking at to realistically commission a boat like this is difficult. Also, you know, trying to fund that in any respect. And we'll go through costings in just a little bit, and I'll run through with you guys, you know, what this is going to cost and how I'm sort of bringing in some other income, which is again part of the reason for kind of turning down the routes of YouTube and stuff, is that you know, in years gone by, kind of landing a commission would have probably been the only way to undertake a project like this realistically and get yourself started. But there are kind of other options on the table to at least get it started. And as I said, this is a kind of conscious effort for myself to push myself in that direction. I'm very determined that this business is going to build new wooden boats. That's the angle that we're going to go for, and I really want to push myself in that direction. I'm a great believer of the whole build it and they will come motto, which is kind of why I've started this project, and actually started it with not really fully fully understanding or knowing how I'm actually going to see this through to completion. But the whole build it and they will come mentality, I'm a great believer in, and I believe this project will work out. Well, it will do, because I won't give up on it, that's for sure. You know, we'll get started and we'll work the details out as we go. Okay, so if you made it this far, then thank you very much for sticking around through that segment. I really appreciate you listening to what I got to say about this project. That was a little bit of an insight into exactly why I got started and why I want to push the business in that direction. Now, you saw me epoxy coating the parts there. There was a little bit of work running up to that with the cleanup and preparation of the frames. So we're going to look at that next. I'll show you all the cleanup process, and whilst I'm doing that, we'll talk a little bit about the project costings and exactly what this boat is going to cost and the running costs of the business alongside that. Okay, so by all means, let me know in the comments below if I'm right here. I'll be really interested to hear your guys' perspective on this and just where you kind of thought your estimates lied in comparison to where the project costs are really going to be. I'm going to take a guess that probably the majority of people think I earn a lot more money from YouTube than I actually do, and they probably also think that the boat is going to cost a lot less than it actually is. So it'd be interesting to see where the expectation lies there. So as I mentioned, getting a boat building business started from scratch is an incredibly difficult undertaking. You may be inclined to watch a lot of my videos and think Dan's doing really well for himself because look at the workshop he's got. And I'm very appreciative of the fantastic workshop facilities that I have got to work in. That's a great starting point for me to be able to launch this business. But it took a huge amount of very hard work to get to that stage. Everything that you see in the shop there is machines and tools and things that I bought over the process of running a previous business, and that took around about 10 years to amass the workshop setup that you see now. All of the tools were bought over that period. Every time we had a job where I did well on a little bit of, you know, made a bit of profit, I would put that straight back into buying another tool, buying another machine. So that took me an incredibly long time to build that. It was by no means funded by some magical inheritance or investment or anything. It was all built through a lot of hard work, a little bit at a time. And that business started literally from nothing in a shipping container which you may have seen in some of my very early videos. I started the business in there and we grew it over 10 years to get to where it is now. And that gave me a really good springboard to be able to start the boat building business. And it meant that I could actually make that transition with a fully established workshop already. So that was a really great kind of foot up, but by no means an easy one. So if you want to put a cost into the mix for that, I would put an approximate estimate of the total value of all the machinery and tools and setup that I've got at the moment. Around about £80,000, I would say, would buy you pretty much everything that I've got there. A lot of these machines were bought second hand; they're not new by any means, and that's probably roughly the equivalent value of everything that I've got in the shop to date. So if you were starting this from scratch, that's approximately the sort of value you'd need to set yourself up with an established workshop. Obviously, you don't need all of these machines to build this boat, but looking at what I've got there, that's roughly what you're looking at. Now, as I'm moving over from running that established business, which is turning over work that's going in and out constantly all the time, I'm kind of transitioning into this period of doing boat building where there's actually a lot less income coming in. And that's part of the reason that I wanted to kind of make this video, really, is just to highlight the sort of costs that I'm dealing with for you guys to be able to see with this project and with the business as a total. So as an approximate monthly overhead for me to cover all the baseline costs of this workshop, so that's rent, electricity, insurance, everything else for just the baseline existing in a workshop, all of my kind of costs, plus the cost to be able to pay myself a basic wage, and I do pay myself a pretty humble wage, really. The total for that amounts to around about £4,500 a month. So that's basically what I've got to find to just break even and cover my costs on a monthly basis. When it comes to paying for Temptress, let's take a look at the breakdown of roughly what I think I'm going to be up against throughout the process of this build. Now, some of these costs are estimates, but they're fairly comprehensive estimates, really. I've done a big kind of costing model and gone through all the parts that I'm going to need. So let's take a look at roughly what we're up against with funding this boat. So timber in total is going to amount to around about £13,000. That's going to be to build all of the hull, planking, pretty much everything I need for this boat as I've currently spec'd it. Adhesives and finishes, they are going to amount to around about £5,500. So that's going to be epoxies, paints, varnish, all the kind of consumable stuff that we're going to need throughout this process. The deck fittings and general hardware of the boat, this includes all of the kind of custom fabricated stainless stuff that's going to go on this boat. There's a lot of nice jewellery to go on down the line, and the price of that certainly does mount up, especially because a lot of this is one-off fabricated. The cost for that is going to amount to just under £20,000. We've then got the kind of drive line and the engine, gearbox, propeller, shaft log, all the kind of stuff directly associated to the drive line for the boat. That's going to also include the Ilmor 5.3 litre GDI engine, which we're going to run with this boat, and V-drive gearbox, shift mechanism, electrical harness, all that kind of stuff. That's going to amount to around about £30,000 in total for all of the driveline system as the boat is currently spec'd. There are then a few costs that I've just kind of put in, and these are fairly loose figures at the moment, but just to give some kind of idea of what we might be up against. So just general kind of auxiliary stuff and electrical, that's going to amount to around about £5,000. That's going to include things like exhaust hoses, electrical systems, gauges, lighting, switches. Maybe we'll run some kind of charging systems. It'd be nice to have quite a cool sort of modern electrical system within this boat, and I've got some ideas for things I want to do there, but of course that's going to be kind of budget dependent. So around about £5,000 for auxiliary and electrical. We're going to have to buy a trailer for the boat, of course. It's got to sit on a trailer for me to be able to get it anywhere, so that's going to amount to around about £8,000 in total. And then we've got upholstery to do as well. that is most likely going to be outsourced to an upholsterer. So the figure that I've put in for that as an estimate at the moment is around another £5,000. Okay, so that's an approximate total for the material cost for this particular build. That of course doesn't allow anything for my labour time or the hours that will actually go into covering this build as a whole. I hope that hasn't scared off too many people if you're considering building one of these boats for yourself. That figure, of course, amounts to a boat that's of a fairly high spec, which this is. I'm running the Ilmor engine, which is at the kind of higher end of the price bracket for marine engines. They're certainly one of the best engines available on the market today. There's also a lot of custom fabricated hardware in there, which really pushes the price up. Now, if you are thinking about building one of these boats for yourself, it can be done on a lower budget. Things like the hardware, for example, if you were to use kind of off-the-shelf fittings and cut back on maybe some of the hardware elements, you can certainly save a chunk of money there. The windscreen bracket, of course, is quite an integral part to the way that the boat looks, but certainly things like some of the lifting hardware and the fittings you could certainly save on there by going with off-the-shelf items. So that's a little look at what I'm up against with regards to the material costs that are to come on this project. There are two primary income sources that directly steer towards this and are a result of this project, and that is my YouTube revenue and my revenue from Patreon as well, from the people that are supporting the project on there. And I'm very much grateful to the additional support that you guys offer through there. If you don't know how YouTube works, basically what happens is Google display adverts on YouTube videos. Google charges advertisers to show those videos, and the creator gets a share of that ad revenue. So you basically get paid for every time that advert is shown. That means that the entire funding model for YouTube videos comes from views alone. A lot of people think that it's based on subscribers. That actually has very little to do with how much you get paid. Obviously, the more subscribers you've got by default, that normally means that you get more views per video that you put up, but that is not always the case, and it's very rare that you actually get full subscriber viewage on a new video. So you'll get paid per views on a video. That view count is calculated by YouTube as what they call the RPM, the return per mile, and that's displayed to the creator in a figure, and that is an amount that you get paid per 1,000 views on a video. That can vary based on the type of video and the length of the video, and therefore what adverts can be shown on it, but most typically you could earn anything from around £3 to £8 per 1,000 views. So let's jump into YouTube Studio and I'll show you the behind the scenes look at how the channel actually looks. So we'll go into content here. You can see the views that I've typically got on my last lot of videos. We'll look at the analytics on those and see what I'm earning. So last Temptress video, we've got just under 21,000 views on that. If we go into the analytics, you can see that I've earned a total of £190 for that last video. 20,000 views seem to be around about typical of what I get on a new Temptress video, so we'll take a look at this one. That's a little bit less, £141, and that can be based on the length of video, the type of adverts that are shown on it, a number of different factors that will vary. And then when we go into the revenue, you can see this RPM figure that I talked about, and this is how much I'm getting paid per 1,000 views for that particular video. We'll take a look at something that's got a slightly better view rate on it. So this one's up to just under 40,000 views, and you can see I've made £230 from that video. Now we'll go and look at analytics as a whole. Now, of course, this this pay rate is kind of cumulative for all these videos here. They're all earning most of the money when you first publish them, but then they do start to tail off, as you can see with this graph here. So we earn most of the money, and then that kind of starts to flatten out as the viewership reduces over time. So we've got a small amount of income coming in from videos all the time. You can see what this amounts to on a monthly basis for me at the moment, around about £890 per month. If we take a look down here, we can see what's actually doing that in view rate, and you can see actually the majority of that revenue has come from an older video that I've got that's done fairly well. So that one's still bringing in some pretty good revenue at the moment, and you can see how that kind of tails off down towards the bottom. So that gives you a little insight into the sort of money that I've got typically coming in on a monthly basis from YouTube revenue. Now, on top of the YouTube revenue, I've got the revenue from Patreon, where people pledge an extra amount monthly. You get early access to videos, you get things like merch drops for certain tiers, so you get some things in reward for your monthly pledge, but generally seems to be the consensus from most people that actually they want to help me out with this project financially, and I hugely appreciate that. As you can see, there's quite a big disparity between what I need to pay out on a monthly basis and what I'm earning certainly from the videos with this. So total Patreon revenue amounts to around about £400 a month at the moment, which I'm getting typically. So with that and YouTube combined, we're amounting to around about £1,300 a month income directly from this project. Now, when you look at that in comparison to my costs, as I said earlier on in the video, my basic operational costs just to exist in this workshop here are about £4,500 a month. So you can see that the revenue from the YouTube videos and Patreon even combined together falls quite a long way short of that. That realistically allows me to dedicate about 25% of my time to this project. And bearing in mind that is just covering my baseline operations. That's not putting anything in the pot towards the circa £85,000 worth of stuff I've got to buy for finishing this boat further on down the line. So this is the reason for me really mentioning in the previous video that I need to start to take a turn towards trying to find a customer for this boat so that I can turn this from a complete outlay into an actual paid job within the workshop here. Now, there's not an immediate need for that. Obviously, I do other work here in the shop. I do things like run my online courses and do other bits of jobs in and around the place. So that makes up that shortfall certainly in my monthly income anyway, and allows me to at least exist. But what would be really great would be to be able to dedicate more of my working week onto this project and to start to move it forwards. In order to do that, as you can see, the revenue from that project needs to significantly increase in some respect, and that's either with a great hike in the videos or ideally by bringing on board a customer with the project. That's going to allow me to put a lot more time to this, which is then in turn going to allow me to dedicate more time to moving the project forward, which means there'll be more development in each video, which probably means the videos will then start to do a bit better because they'll move forward more, and the whole kind of ball will really start to roll then, which would be great. I'd also like to thank the project sponsors that have helped me to get this started. Those are Sykes Timber, Robbins Timber, West System and Ep25. Now, they're helping me out with the cost of materials, so that pricing that you looked at earlier for the cost of materials. They're helping me out with reductions there. By no means free, so I'm not getting all that stuff for free. I'm still having to outlay the cost for those materials, but they are giving me really great reductions on them, which has certainly helped me to get this started to this stage. It's helped to reduce the overall cost, and I don't think I'd even be at this stage right now if that wasn't the case. So I'm greatly appreciative to those companies, and in return I'm doing what I can to showcase their products and companies through this video series. Income wise, I also have some private investment coming in on the project, and that's a really great addition that's helped to inject some cash, which is going to enable me to buy some of those materials that I need to buy, and at least help to keep the project moving forward without me running out of the funds to be able to buy the parts that I need. So that's really great. In the long term though, that investment needs to be repaid, and so ultimately that steers to the same position where we are really going to need to sell the boat in order to be able to clear that down. So it's great in the short term that it's going to help to keep this project moving and enable me to be able to buy parts, but ultimately a buyer is what we need to start looking for. As I mentioned, there's not an immediate need for that, and this is not about me kind of saying, help, I need somebody to buy this boat. This is really a long-term forecast of, you know, within the next 12 months, realistically, for me to be able to start to dedicate more time to the project and for me to be able to handle some of those quite heavy hitting costs that are coming down the road at me. That's the way that I think I'm going to need to be able to do that in order to see this project through. Initially, I would have loved the idea of fully funding this through videos, keeping this boat for myself and being able to use it. But ultimately, that is just not a realistic dream. And, you know, I'm not the kind of person that would be in a position to own a boat of this type anyway, with, you know, with my life and paying to store it, paying to run it. It's just not something that I as a person would otherwise be able to do anyway. So, you know, expecting that I can do that under my own steam and try and fund my business at the same time was, you know, a very ambitious thing to aim for. But, you know, you never know if video views can go up and things can all start to roll. Maybe that'll happen, but it's a very outside possibility right now. So that's where I'm at. That's a look into why I decided to dive into this massive crazy project and push myself in that direction. Was just that determination that this is really what I want to be doing as Dan Lee Boat Building, not getting tied up with restoration work, which is never really where I wanted to be. That's a look at the costings, what I'm up against price-wise with the things I've got to buy and the work that is to come on this boat. And that's a little look at the income that I get, a bit on how YouTube works, what I make from YouTube, how the revenue works from Patreon as well. Now, as I said, I really do hate asking people for things, and I don't by any means expect any of you guys that are watching this series to put money into this. As I've said, I chose to do this. I chose to put myself down that route, and I don't expect you guys to pick up the bill for it by any means. But should you wish to help out the project in any way and to help me kind of cover those costs and start to move this forward, I would massively appreciate anything that you can put in. The more revenue that comes in from this project, the more time I can spend on the build, the more I can put into the videos and the more content I can bring to you guys. So I will aim to try and return that to you wherever possible at all. Should you wish to help out, you can do that in a number of ways. You can do that in a non-monetary way by just simply sharing these videos and getting them out there and trying to get more people to see them. The more views they get, the better they do. As you've seen, the more revenue I'll earn from the videos, and that greatly helps. If you would like to pledge a little bit of money every month, then you can do that via Patreon, and that's really great way to get early access to these videos. You get ad-free access as well, so you can watch them early, as soon as they're ready to go, without the annoying YouTube adverts on the side. You get merch drops for various different tiers of Patreon as well, and some extra behind the scenes footage that I do every now and then for an update video when something else is going on here. And failing that, if you want to buy yourself a boat, there's one here underway. So if anybody's looking for a 24-foot modern wood runabout, get in touch, and I'd love to bring a customer on board, or just spread the word, and we'll try and find a buyer, and things can really then start to roll with the business. One thing I forgot to talk about in the video is what that's going to really mean for me as a business. You know, this would massively evolve things. It would mean that I'd probably be able to employ somebody here and bring in a second pair of hands on the project and really push that forward. That would be a really great advancement for the business, and allow things here to start to expand. So that would be great, as well as obviously just relieving the pressure of kind of running all of this. Which you've kind of seen now. So there we go. If you've made it to this part of the video, thank you very much indeed for sticking around. I know there's been a lot of talk in this, and I'm sorry about that. I'd much rather be just showing you doing stuff, but kind of wanted to portray that message. So thank you very much indeed if you have made it this far. As you've seen, epoxy coated these parts and got them back in. So in the next video, I'm going to start epoxy coating the next handful of frames, and I'm going to actually talk about the process in that, why we're epoxy coating, how I'm doing it, what I'm sanding to, why I'm doing it, and all that stuff. I'll explain all that in the next video. So hopefully be a bit less serious in that one, and more boat building work. Thanks again, guys. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.